It's not 5 o'clock, and they don't care. Welcome to Wine to 5. Entertainment, education, and everyday drinking for everyday people. Your hosts are Valerie Caruso and Stephanie Davis, two wine educators who don't need a clock to know when to pour that next glass.
Welcome back, Wine to 5 listeners. Today, Steph and I are in Colorado Springs. Cheers to that. Cheers to that. Cheers. And I'm drinking the autumnal equinox, in other words, the first day of autumn. Steph?
Thanks, everyone, for being here with us. Today, we're talking about some favorite historical figures in the world of wine and what they contributed to our current drinking goodness. And speaking of goodness, wait until you hear about what's in our glasses.
Get it? Hearing? Okay, yeah, how many drinks have we had now? We are drinking something called cherry liqueur, and the brand name is Hearing, Heering. It's the original cherry liqueur, right, Steph?
Yes, from 1818. Hearing is the brand name, named for Peter Hearing, the purveyor to the Royal Danish Court, currently ruled by Margrethe II, the Queen of Denmark. So very cool.
Very cool that we found this in a liquor store because I was making all these cocktails and a lot of recipes called for it. And of course, I've got it home. It's been in the basement now for about a week, and I forgot I had it until we're digging around for something to drink for the podcast.
Yeah.
And what does the back say? That this is an accessory?
Oh, yeah. This is what I liked about it the most. Fashion accessory. I'm feeling fashionable.
I'm glad you are. I mean, I'm looking frumpy, but this is... yeah.
Oh my gosh. It says, adding extravagance and civilization to the mix. Yeah. I'm feeling extravagant.
All right. So, booze as a fashion accessory, you heard it here. Go tell E.
That's right.
Go tell E.
All right. Well, let's get into the show.
Oh, you know what? We're going to get into the show.
Okay, Val, let's stop drinking our cherry liqueur for just a brief moment.
Yeah. So what we're talking about today is famous historical figures and what they've contributed to the wine world. And when I think of wine history, I think about people who might have made a difference. And you heard us talk last week about Dom Perignon and what he contributed. And we've all heard about the Widow Clicquot and Pardon Saudin and what have you. You know, I always kind of default to several figures, and two of them are actually guys. The first one being Thomas Jefferson. And I know it's like, Val, really? When you think of wine, you think of Thomas Jefferson? Well, yeah, you know, I do. And I think because I served a bottle of wine with his name on it at a party recently, and I'll probably talk about that later, he was a very big wine aficionado. He started kind of getting his wine chops on things like port and sherry, but then he visited France in 1784, and he fell in love with wines like Bordeaux and Burgundy, and then he collected them. So he also loved sparkling wine. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that later, but he did build a cellar in the White House. He did build a cellar in Monticello in Virginia. And he also spent a lot of time trying to grow European grape varieties like Vitis vinifera, the wine grape varieties we know and love today. And he did experiment with native grape, these are American vines like Labrusca. So I think of Thomas Jefferson. And the other one I think of is Winston Churchill. Mainly because he was a big lover of champagne, in particular Pol Roger, which I was drinking last week. Remember, it was dripping down my arm. Remember that one? Yeah. So he's got a tête de cuvée or prestige cuvée named after him, the Winston Churchill. And he was, as you know, a British prime minister. And it was said that he consumed 42,000 bottles in his lifetime. That's more than a bottle a day from birth until somebody's 115 years old.
Oh my God.
And that is according to this Bottle Notes article that we're reading. I think it's really interesting. And he was also famous for, during World War II, saying to his troops, remember, gentlemen, It's not just France we're fighting for, it's Champagne. So I thought those are two interesting figures that come to mind when I think of, their impact on wine culture and being advocates for their favorite types of wine. So what about you, Steph?
Well, I'm still thinking about this 42,000 bottles.
I know.
I mean, I almost regret not keeping track of how many bottles I have consumed, just to say, over my lifetime, that I've consumed so many bottles, and I'm really trying to compare myself to Churchill or something like that.
Yeah, and I guess our recycle guys could probably tell you.
I think maybe they have the number.
Maybe they're keeping count because they don't look happy when they show up to collect. But
and I think Thomas Jefferson definitely has come up so many times. There's some great books out there about his wine life and his collections. And isn't the Billionaire's Vinegar book?
I've never read that.
Oh, I gotta lend that to you then.
You have it?
Yes, I have it. It's been a long time since I've read
Val,
it.
I don't have it. I'm gonna lend you my friend's book. But
yeah, definitely. That should next time I'm coming down to the Springs.
Okay.
But because we are Wine25 and we're some sassy ladies, we wanted to mention some women in wine history that you should know about, and specifically on the corkguru.com site, there is a nice list of 8 women in wine history that we can share with you. And the one that I really picked out of the 8 that resonates with me is Martine Saunier, and how, even to this day, at the age of 80-something, I really don't know.
Were you thinking of Lalou?
No.
No? I thought she was in her 80s. Oh, Martine's in her 80s?
I think, or 70s?
No, she's pretty hardcore. Yeah, you're right. She's
She's up there.
Up there.
She's
I'm sure she appreciates us saying that.
But she is like,
we love you, Martine, and we want to party with you.
We do. And
totally.
She's like a whippersnapper at that age. I mean, age is just a number, right?
Right.
But, a few years ago, I read about her in the Wall Street Journal, and I was so inspired by how if you really love what you do in the wine industry, it doesn't matter how old you are. I mean, it's not about retiring. It's about pursuing something you love and doing it a long time. But she is the first woman to establish a wine importing company in the U.S. And she's also, and we mentioned, Val mentioned her in last week's episode, that she produced the movie A Year in Burgundy, and then the follow-up film, A Year in Champagne.
Mm-hmm. 2 of my favorites. Yeah.
So she is a big-time influencer in the wine industry, and so shout out to her for sure. The other important woman in wine history that we wanted to mention is Barbe Nicole Clicquot. So the widow Clicquot. Veuve Clicquot, for anybody who's familiar with the yellow label. She had a huge impact, and there's a great book about it. But she gets credit for the riddling process of making champagne. So that is something that I think not a lot of people really know that she gets the credit for.
Right.
And yeah, so we're going to post this. And Cork Guru is new to me. And they're out of Pittsburgh, so go Steelers. Stillers.
I was born in Pittsburgh in that.
That's right.
So, yeah.
And so you can read more about these ladies and the other 6 women that are in the list.
Absolutely. And for those of you that don't know what riddling is, when we talk about riddling when it comes to champagne, these are for wines that are made in what we call the classic method. And the way that works is you've seen those A-shaped racks. Some of you have them in your home, and I've coveted them. But these A-shaped racks with the bottles that are kind of almost upside down in them, the reason they do that is to shove sediment into the neck of the bottle, which they freeze, and it kind of clarifies the wine. But the way that happened was actually her winemaker. She asked him to drill the holes in the table. And then she's trying to figure out how to get all of that sediment into the neck of the bottle. And then, of course, she took her kitchen table, turned it upside against the wall, and it was her winemaker that drilled the holes and figured out the angles for the bottle. So I think that's really cool. But we'll go ahead and post that because it's really, really interesting. And as far as these veuves go, veuve means widow in French. And I'm going to give a shout out to a very historical widow. And I'm just going to use the word badass because she is. Okay? And you've got to figure this is way back in the Franco-Prussian War. And I think if you've ever read the story of Champagne and why I'm so enamored with it is because that part of France was just trounced on over the centuries and sacked and bombed all to hell during the wars and everything. And these widows, including Barbe Nicole Clicquot, Ponsardin, and Lily Boulanger, I believe she was a widow too, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
And of course, I'm going to talk about Madame Louise Pommery. Okay, so most people credit her for being stubborn in her forging ahead in the market of dry champagne. She was very, very stubborn when most champagne was actually sweet. And she believed that the English were going to really buy into some dry champagne. And, she kind of went back and forth with her winemaker, but she decided to do it, and it totally took off. But if you read the book Champagne by Don and Petey Clodstrup, there are stories about this woman that really, really stick with you. And for this one in particular, during the Franco-Prussian War, when the Prussians occupied Champagne's homes and their schools and the other buildings, they had over 30,000 military troops kind of occupying France and Champagne in particular. But Louise Pommery's home was also requisitioned by the military governor, and he ordered that all civilians be disarmed of their weapons, including hunting rifles. And the reason for this is because somebody took a shot at a soldier outside of a cafe. Okay? And he didn't like this. So he disarmed all the civilians. Try that in this country, right? Yeah, right. So, needless to say, Count Alfred van Waldersee, who was Prussia's military attaché, he came to Reims, which is in Champagne, home of that big cathedral that you always see on the postcards and everything. He came to assess the occupation. And so the military governor invited him to have lunch at Madame Pommery's home. Okay, and this is where he was kind of holing up. Well, here's what went down. Okay, so as everybody sat down to lunch, the governor was describing how he had put an end to the recent trouble, particularly of the snipers, trying to pick off the guards, by disarming the civilians. And he says, at last, there are no more armed civilians left, he said. My proclamation has been obeyed. So get this. Madame Pommery quickly interrupted. And I'm reading from page 106 of this book because this is just too cool to mess up. So I'm not going to mess it up. I can assure you, sir, that some citizens still have arms. With that, she pulled a small revolver from her pocket. It will never leave my side. The two men were stunned.
Oh my gosh.
Madam, in the governor's house, blurted Hohenlohe, and he is the guy that was occupying her house. I can't remember what he called the prince there. And so he's kind of like stunned, and he says, in the governor's house, right? Well, sir, I must remind you that this is my house, and I still have firearms belonging to my family hidden away. Perhaps you would like to search for them. Meanwhile, the guns had been hidden under the floorboards. A shocked silence followed before Waldersee spoke up. Keep your weapons, madam. It is not we Prussians who disarm the ladies. It is they who disarm us.
Oh, Shazam.
Shazam is right. I mean, and there are other stories in here where she's just...
That's a good story.
Spunky. And if I remember correctly, she wasn't all that tall either. So she was just, just not having it. She gave up her crayères, those underground tunnels, people were like living under there. She was housing troops under there. I mean, she was just a neat lady. So when you read books like this and you read, how wine has a role in history and how history even has a role in wine and some of these characters, I just find it so interesting. But right?
I think it's cool, especially because I was saying we're sassy, but and I don't even compare to that.
No. That's a whole new level of sass.
That's a whole new level, definitely.
Yeah. So that was my memorable historical character in the world of wine. I mean, she just wasn't having it.
That's good. we need to do a book swap.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the billionaire's vinegar. I'm going to read that champagne book.
Yeah. As soon as I take my master level exam, which I might have moved to December or whenever I finally Roger up and do it, I'll go ahead and pass it on to you. But,
Nice.
Yeah. So there you go.
Cool. Well, what's our factoid?
Factoid?
Yeah.
Well, I'm still talking here. Okay, so factoid.
I'm still talking.
So, we mentioned TJ, or Thomas Jefferson, and I mentioned that I recently served a bottle with his name on it. It was a Gerard Bertrand Cremant de Limoux Rosé. I had a French fringe wine fun dinner. And so I served this bottle. Everybody loved it. But did you know that sparkling wine from Limoux, which is in the south of France, actually in the Languedoc region where I studied, it actually predates champagne.
That's right.
It was made intentionally with bubbles back in like the 1500s, before Dom, like 100 years before Dom Perignon was ever born. Okay. Also, Thomas Jefferson was such a fan. Remember I mentioned that earlier? This was the sparkling wine that was believed to be present in Thomas Jefferson's personal cellar. The only sparkling wine.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either. You know, I kind of was looking that up and for my blog, and I never wrote the post, and there you go. 2 factoids for the price of 1.
Yeah, well, and you know, I just had that Cremant de Limoux from Gerard Bertrand when I was up in the Steamboat Wine Fest, and for the value, it was great. And Gerard Bertrand is easy to find. I mean, it's a
very easy to find,
widely available brand, so you know, I would recommend that. Beyond the Cremant, I mean, some of the other wines are really good too, but I was delighted to see that they also have, you know, they have the rosé, but they also just have the regular Cremant too.
Right.
So there's a couple of choices and a connection back to history.
And also, you know, a lot of people, let's throw another factoid out there real quick. Some of the best values in French wines come from the southern France. Particularly Languedoc-Roussillon.
Hands down.
Absolutely. So you talk about a value in French wines. I will tell you, probably one of my favorite Chardonnays is like an $11 bottle. It's that Novellum.
I don't think I've had it.
It's a Chardonnay from the south of France. They're from the Languedoc area, or Roussillons, or somewhere in between. And I understand it's passed through Viognier must, is what I was once told. And it's not oaked, but it is absolutely delicious. I got a bottle downstairs. It's one of those great value wines that people just overlook because they don't know them, but a lot of them are varietally labeled. So you'll see Chardonnay on the bottle, or you'll see Merlot on the bottle, or whatever.
Yeah, that's a big difference for sure for French wine. You know, and I think that people in the U.S. would appreciate that.
Absolutely. So I guess that's Factoid City today. So let's get to the wino radar, Steph. What is on your wino radar for the week? Can you believe how fast this is going?
It is crazy. It seems like, you know, it was just last week that we were talking about our movies.
I know, right?
So, actually, as a reference to last week's movies, I went to my very first Starbucks with beer and wine today, Val. And they have truffle popcorn.
Oh.
Just like I had last week.
Slap the table.
No, they don't have movies. They don't have movies there, but you can have a glass of wine and you can have truffle popcorn. So these Starbucks that have wine, craft beer, small plates, they're popping up everywhere nationwide. So look out for them. What I think is kind of cool is they've got 4 white wine selections, 5 red wine selections, and a sparkling. And they actually, like all other Starbucks items, have the calories listed for you. So now you know I like that. Now you know that you're having 150 calories of a Malbec. Okay. And even on the small plates, same thing. 250 calories for the salumi plate. But, you know, I was in there for lunch today, and I didn't have a glass of wine, but I really thought about it. So, you know what? I'm going to go check it out next time and do the Starbucks wine experience.
You know, for those people who can't decide on wine or coffee, you can go to Starbucks and have them both.
Yeah, both. You know what? When in doubt,
have them both.
Choose both.
There you go. I love it.
What's on your radar?
Oh, so my wino radar is that the 4th edition to Janice, or excuse me, I always want to say Janice, and I did for years. Jancis Robinson's Oxford Companion to, I have like how many of her books up there, and I can't say her name right. But the 4th edition of the Oxford Companion is out as of last week. I believe it came out on the 17th, and it is updated. I believe a couple weeks back in the book club, I mentioned the World Atlas of Wine. The 7th edition was the latest. It was actually released in 2013, not this year like I was thinking. But they're both red. Yep. So, and they're both new. So the 7th edition of the Atlas and then the 4th edition of the Oxford Companion to Wine. It's like a big old wine encyclopedia is what it is. Mm-hmm. I mean, you open the book, it's in there. You know, if you read encyclopedias like a kid, did you read encyclopedias as a kid?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, not necessarily for fun, but I did have to use them quite a bit.
Oh, no, I read them for fun because I was a big old dork. But we used to play, like, the encyclopedia game. You'd, like, open the book and, like, pick a word and, like, oh.
No.
Oh, God, I am a dork. Oh, my God. So, anyway, yeah, the Oxford Companion is out. And if you're a cork dork, get the 4th edition. I think it's, like, $42, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah.
That's worth it.
That was on my wino radar. I know, it's a book. I lead such an amazing
But you know what? I think having a library is cool.
Well, you're sitting right in front of it.
I know. It's cool. I like it. I'm all for that. Okay, so let's give some shout outs. You know, we who are we giving a shout out? Oh, some of those ladies who go down in history deserve shout outs for sure. But I'm going to give a shout out to my friend Richard Maro Ricciuti. I really have no Italian accent, but he was over the other night and had dinner at my house and shared a sinfully delicious Brunello, and it was a 2004 Citile di Sopra Brunello di Montalcino. Thank you so much, Richard. Love you and loved the wine. Thank you.
Now, isn't he from Florence?
He actually, he's from New York.
Oh.
But his family is from just north of Puglia.
Oh, okay. So southern Italy there. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to party with him.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds like
he's a good time.
Sounds like he knows how to drink.
Yes, he does.
On my shout out, it goes to the Cellar Restaurant, the Cellar Cellar. It is in Daytona Beach, and in particular, Lena Moggio and her husband and chef, Sam. This is my second time to this jewel in the middle of a not-so-upscale neighborhood, but this place is fantastic. In fact, the restaurant is not only the seasonal home to President Warren G. Harding. Okay, it was built in 1907. It's on the National Historic Registry, but as a restaurant, they actually live upstairs, and the restaurant is in the cellar. And you're dining pretty much in the wine cellar, which is really kind of cool, even though it looks more like a restaurant with, like, you know, bottles around and whatever. But the service, the food, and particularly the beverage program is top notch. Okay, Lena, she runs a tight ship, and the experience at the cellar really does, to me, epitomize fine dining. And that includes what I call the essential S's of a complete fine dining experience: service, selection, and stemware. These are details that many of our restaurants somehow seem to overlook, which is why I eat at home a lot. But grazie molto, Lena. This is it's mostly Italian food, superb wine list, most amazing service, and it's probably one of the very few experiences where I've gone in a restaurant and I've left there going, yeah, I can't complain about anything.
I love this essential S's.
Those are
service, selection, stemware. Like, that should be our new hashtag or something. Essential S's.
You know, they're more of my pet peeves.
Yeah.
But that's more of a positive spin on it because, you know, when I go in a restaurant that calls themselves fine dining,
right? And
around here we have some that have great food, great service, amazing ambiance, but their beverage program, it's like, oh my God.
What a letdown.
Yeah, I know, what a letdown. And you don't spend as much money as you would had they had a good beverage program. So service, selection, stemware, that's the thing that, you know, people like Bobby Stuckey up on Frasca have it nailed.
Yeah.
They have it nailed. I mean, that's, you know, one of those examples. But yeah, this was a great treat. I take my family there for special occasions because there aren't a lot of really good dining options there for me. So, you know, obviously.
What a neat place, though. That sounds cool.
It's really cool. It was on Emerald's, Florida, too.
Oh.
So yeah, I posted a video on Vino with Val of the actual preview to Emerald, Florida. So he went and visited. So that's my shout out. So
and when I think of Florida fine dining, I think of Burns Steakhouse.
Oh, and Tampa on the other side. So we're on the Daytona Beach side. So you're all in there's some seafood restaurant, but it's mostly like bar food and fried stuff. And I did find a Honduran place that was really awesome. And it is a wine bar as well. And that place is fantastic. Chucherias.
That sounds different.
Yeah, Chucherias. I gave them a shout out on Twitter last week too. So,
cool.
But other than that, yeah, I usually eat in my hotel. It's just better wine. So,
all right.
What's going on next week? What are we doing next week? What do you think?
All right, next week. It's going to be October next week.
Can you believe it?
Unreal. Yeah, so we're going to talk about seasonal entertaining. Getting ready for fall, all those good comfort foods, entertaining with wine. So it's going to heat up as the temperatures cool down, Val.
I love it. It's my favorite time of year.
It's nice.
It is. It's the most wonderful time of the year.
That's why we live in Colorado.
That's true. That's true. And also what's true is our time has gone way too quickly again. We do want to hear from you. So you can actually connect with Steph on Twitter at Albarello Soap. And you can also find her on the Albarello Soap Facebook page. You can find me, Val, on Twitter also. I am Wine Gal Unboxed. And I'm also on the Vino with Val Facebook page and on Instagram too as Vino with Val. And there's pretty much pictures of like booze and occasional zoo animals, and that's about it. But if you're pictures of booze and booze books, if you like those things, come find me on Instagram.
Nice. Okay, and have you visited us on the Wine25 Facebook page or Twitter yet? Well, you can, and you can also email us at wine25@gmail.com and let us know what you'd like to learn about. Also, if you love Wine25, and we know you do because you keep coming back.
And thank you. Thank you for that. Yay.
Thank you. And have told us, so hey, please post a review for us at the iTunes or Stitcher and share us with your friends,
Absolutely.
Share the love.
Share the love.
So until next week,
cheers.
Cheers.
Oh my God, your glass is empty. Fix that.
Yum.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you for listening to the Wine to Five podcast. Be sure to check us out at Facebook/WineTWO5 and tune in next week for more fun and useful sip tips.